And I think we are live. Looks like it
Fantastic.
there. All right, cool. Welcome everyone to episode 5.5. Small change. We're talking about Pale Commonwealth beers today. Uh, Couldn't even keep a
Yeah,
straight face.
yeah. Let's get that
No,
going. Yeah.
Yeah,
no, we're
right.
not. No, there. That would be like a 5-minute episode. I mean, like
It's beer.
it's pale.
Yeah. It's wet.
Yes, we are talking about IPAs today, and we're going to try to get through as much as we can with the vast category that is IPA. We kind of picked that because there's a lot to talk about. Yeah, so I guess on that aspect, what's everyone drinking?
Go for it, Brian.
No, so I have the only IPA I have on tap right now is it's probably gonna look brown in the camera. It kind of looks reddish. It's a red IPA. It's a beer that we fondly call Benny's Red, named after one of our past rabbits that we've adopted,
That is a
who
good
had
beer.
patches. It's a Simcoe and Centennial hop beer. Last time I fermented it with Bell's House yeast. This time I used Imperial Flagship. Bell's yeast attenuates like nobody's business. Like I don't know if you guys have used it, but that thing ferments down to like 85%,
Oh.
like regularly for me.
I've never used it.
Now that's actually the beer that you had made into a kit, right? Viewers can go online and buy the kit to make that beer right now.
That's right.
Yeah, so not to like diss label peelers or anything like that. It still exists somewhere. They said at one point in time, and it's still on their website. They said that I was going to get a cut of like money for every time that kit is sold or something like that. But I know a few people that have bought it, and one, it never showed up on the affiliate page link that they gave me. And now that the affiliate thing is like totally gone, like it doesn't even exist anymore. So they have the kit, they have the recipe, they're still selling it, but it has nothing to do with me anymore. Except my name is in the description of the kit. So
nice.
that's fine.
Oh, good. There's a little horn tooting you can do there.
Yeah,
name's on a website on a recipe.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So I actually finally got around to kegging. I'm gonna turn off my filter. That is my Big Brew Day. Is it called, what is it, Pangea Proxima?
Yeah.
Polaris something. So it's a Big Brew Day IPA. I finally got around to kegging it. I have not even tasted it yet. I just poured it a few minutes ago. So we brewed this on stream for Big Brew Day with a club. I think it's all New Zealand hops.
Let's hear the review live for the first time ever.
Oh, no
As
pressure.
we watch his face.
No, actually, it's fine. It's fine. It's weird. It's kind of it's New Zealandy. It's not really fruity. It's not really piney. It's got the faintest hint of that Nelson-y,
white wine,
viney, green kind of flavor.
Yeah.
Not like off flavor, but like the flavor that Nelson has. There's no Nelson in it, but the other hop varieties there in New Zealand. What was it? Wahiti.
well, I can't even remember. There were some out there names.
I'll look them up. But yeah, there's just some freaky hops I'd never used before. Smells good. Carbonation. I just kegged it and force carved it last night, so it needs a little more carbonation. But yeah, it's solid. No off flavors. I did good job.
What about you, Jordan?
Well, I suggested this as IPA, and turns out I'm a bad craft brew owner, and I don't have any IPAs in the house. So, closest thing I had was Founder's Pilsner, American Hop Pilsner. So close-ish.
No two-hearted, nothing.
No, okay. I do have one. I have one double two-hearted left, but I have to take care of a kid later, and it's basically a barley wine, anyways. So,
True.
know. But so this is what I'm drinking. I got a couple of these sitting here, so this is what I'll be sipping on.
Perfect.
So Brandon says he's drinking Bill's Big Brew. Brandon, do you know if he used the New Zealand hops? I'll give you a second since you're not in here with us. You really should jump in sometime. But no, this is interesting. I'll have to give you guys some. I should have got some for you before the show so we could have shared it on air and you could tell me it sucked.
I only do that with like like 75% of your beers. I'm sure this would have been like the 25%. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So cool. IPAs, which we were just arguing about what the true history of IPA is, and I think the story out there. I'm gonna dive into it, Brian, even though we said we'll avoid it.
Yeah,
but,
let's get right into it.
So the common history of it was that, or that people talk about, was that the beer was overly hopped. The beer was being shipped from Britain to India to the British soldiers, and it was overly hopped to provide shelf life and stability, because hops is naturally a stabilizer or a preservative. And then right before the show, Brian says that's bullshit. And doing a couple of searches, it's easy to find, knockoff news sites that parrot that story, but Wikipedia kind of has your back, Brian.
Oh, does it? Hey, all right.
That's what I just pulled that up. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't read the whole story, but
Wait, can we see if Brian edited this wiki page?
Yeah.
You should.
I think it just had to do with tastes evolving, right? Like it was really just like a.
Now that you say it, I think I've heard that before.
Yeah. Burton, a company requested, Burton Brewers requested a strongly hopped beer from Allsip's Brewery, and then merchants just began demanding it.
It sounds kind of like we have a mix of both. Like, it sounds like somebody was requesting it to then ship it. I mean, I don't know. I haven't read it.
Yeah, this doesn't really talk about anything. So it's just interesting. So people that are out there talking about how it was a shelf stabilizer, myself included, that's what I used to talk about too. But now I have to study up on this. So
I know. I was going to say I'm going to research the shit out of it. We'll come back next week and actually have an answer.
IPA 2.0.
It was literally like 45 seconds before we hit the start broadcast button, and we're like, let's talk about the history of IPA first. And yeah,
hey,
hey,
Deb's watching. Cheers, Deb.
Cheers,
Thanks
Deb.
for hanging out with us last week.
Brandon, no, I haven't read Mitch Steele's IPA book, but I need to. The last one I read was freaking Scott Janish's. So I need to get on that. So yeah, we have a ton of things to talk about as far as IPAs go. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jason.
No, let's kick it to you. Go for it.
No, I mean, so we can start in like a number of different places. Like I was thinking, there's obviously a number of different styles of IPAs out there. Not even going into like the specialty IPAs like white, Belgian, black, stuff like that. But we also have just different regional IPA tastes, like West Coast, Midwest, East Coast IPAs, session IPAs, double IPAs. Are triple IPAs even a thing? So maybe we start. Are triple IPAs a thing? Do you believe in calling a triple IPA a triple IPA?
I don't think so, personally.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there.
It's like Jordan said earlier, that Bell's Double Too Hard is damn near a barley wine. And I think at that point you get into that, 12, 13, 14%, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And all the over aggressive hopping of them. And I think it is just a barley wine, a hopped barley wine, or a strong ale.
Have you seen anybody doing even like a quadruple IPA? It's all like advertising, right? I think, honestly.
It is. Dad, I want to say Odd Sides did one. I had one.
That sounds familiar.
It was horrible. Nothing against Odd Sides, just that. I shouldn't say that. That one was bad. But let me look it up. But yes, Odd Sides has had one. Triple. Is it Implication? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. In any case, I just I think there gets to be a point with IPAs where like maybe like 10% is about the max that I really care for in terms of like alcohol, and at that point in time, like I guess we can start talking about like bitter unit to gravity unit ratios and stuff like that, but
Yep.
it just gets to be to the point where like you just can't balance it out anymore and still have like that much alcohol and just have it be like a good beer. It's very rare for me to have like a beer that's like, or an IPA that's over like 10% that I actually like.
No.
Be like, yeah, I'll drink like another one of these tonight, or even that I want to finish in one sitting before it kind of goes warm.
Yeah.
Like,
Agrees. It was the implication. And just looking at Rate Beer actually has 120 listed as a quad IPA.
do they really?
Yeah.
That's what is 120 these days? It's like 18% ish.
Yeah,
like
it's got to be somewhere around there.
Yeah.
It's more of it's getting to be the point where like it's more of those, I guess you call it like a meme beer or something like that.
I was just gonna say gimmicky beer. At
that
point it's a gimmick. Dogfish Head has a really cool story about how they do their 60 and their 90 and their 120, and I can see where that fits into the hierarchy.
And it's totally cool.
And it is. But now, like Drew just mentioned, there's a limit to perceptible bitterness. Whoops, you were both John at the same time. There is a limit to perceptible bitterness. There's that limit at where you have so much alcohol or so much unfermentable sugar because you try to go so big that you're stepping outside of that bounds. And I actually think, and I had it up earlier and I rebooted my computer right before the show, so I lost it. But the BJCP guidelines don't even really go into it, And when you get into that triple IPA category or phase, they start bumping into old and strong ales and outside of the IPA category, because it just gets to be too much. So, but that said, even in that range of what is an acceptable IPA, there's already damn near a dozen different variations that are recognized. And we know from entering competitions, everybody in the world brews a different IPA. Everybody brews an IPA. It's the most common damn beer.
It's sort of funny that you even bring that up. I read an interesting article the other day, and boy, for the life of me, I can't remember where it was linked from. I might have seen it in Zimmergy, and then went and found the actual article. But it was an opinion piece about calling or changing the name of New England IPAs to just like New England ales, simply because they don't even resemble what we call like an IPA anymore. Like for a few different reasons, one being the haziness. I mean, in a traditional IPA, we just don't have that. The bitterness is lacking. The sharpness, the edge of the bitterness isn't there. So there, I mean, I thought it was a really interesting piece, and I started to sort of like sympathize with that opinion too a little bit. But I kind of wonder what where that's going to sort of go in the next few years here, because I mean, you mentioned the BJCP. The BJCP doesn't set the guidelines of what brewers need to brew. It's the opposite, right? They watch trends and they try to set guidelines for the trends of what people are actually brewing. So, and I mean, a New England IPA or like Vermont IPA, is what they were called for a while too. And some people swear they're two different things even. But I mean, that's all made by, those names are made by us. The breweries have never called them New England IPA when they were putting them out. It just happens to be their locale, right?
Wasn't there some, I guess on that, wasn't there some contention around the name either being New England or Nebraskan?
Yeah. And there was one other too, Northeast.
Oh,
Northeast,
yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think so just looking at BJCP, going into that, and I know that BJCP follows guideline or the trends. You're right. It is the other way around. But in 2004 they had 3 IPAs. They had I think it's regular IPA, strong IPA, and imperial IPA. And now today you go in just the IPA category in the new 2018 model. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Does that include New England as a specialty beta?
Nope. New England would be specialty, but it does not include double. Even double got kicked to strong American ale.
Yep.
So doubles, triples, everything like that's in another category. No, the guidelines right now are American and then specialty, and then inside specialty you have Belgian, black, brown, red, rye, and white. But of course, there's New England. There's Brut.
Brut. Oh, I didn't even think. This whole time I forgot about Brut. I think everybody's forgot about Brut by now.
No,
I hope.
The Founder's Brut is pretty good in my opinion.
Theirs and Old Nations actually had a good one. Their B43.
Yeah,
it was pretty solid.
Speak, but yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, and then I just confirmed it before I said it, but the New England IPA, the original, the Founder, the first one was Heady Topper, which was Vermont. Right? So Northeast, New England, I get both of those. But have you guys had Heady Topper?
So I'm going to do a lot of talking this episode. I have lots and lots of opinions on all of these topics. So
this is
if
style.
if I end up like talking over you guys, I'm so sorry. I'm going to try not to. But so Heady Topper is a good beer. I like it. But I think that beer is different than what us in the Midwest consider New England IPAs.
Absolutely,
I would agree. Yeah,
and like I haven't done enough traveling since the whole New England IPA craze started to really know what they're doing out on the West Coast as far as New Englands go. Jason, you probably know, but I again have read a few articles, and as I understand it, there's a lot of they call it beer telephone being played. So what I mean by that is somebody brews a really good New England IPA. Maybe you start with a Heady Topper or something like that. And then a brewery, a little bit to the west, brews something similar because they, sort of maybe found a clone recipe or read on how to do it. And then another recipe sees that, because they're their neighbor 50 miles off, and it travels and travels and travels and travels. Nobody's actually had what the original was supposed to be. They just have the last person's interpretation of what the original was, and the person's before that and the person's before that. And eventually you get, in the Midwest, a New England IPA that maybe is just a little more bitter than what you get over on the East Coast, because we like that around here. That's how our tastes are, I think. We like the Two Hearteds that are like malty but still a little bitter. I don't know anybody that really likes the New Englands that just sort of have one flat flavor that you taste as soon as you sip it and drink it and swallow it and burp it, and it doesn't change.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably what happens over on the West Coast too. But you might be able to answer that better than me.
So I took a pilgrimage, big 4 years ago. Me, Trent Rinke, if he's watching, and Al Moeller got in a truck and drove 3,000 miles in 3.5 days to go to Vermont to get Heady Topper. And out of that entire trip, I'll have to say Heady Topper was probably the least spectacular beer that I drank, and I just wasn't impressed with it. I think out here in the middle where we're at, I had this imagination or assumption or perception that New England IPAs were juicy and thick and pillowy on the mouthfeel and fruity and citrusy and things like that, and I got there and it really just tasted like kind of a unfiltered Two Hearted. It wasn't anything really special. It was very piney resonance, very, very bitter. And that's what I had in my mind had put towards West Coast. West Coast is all, big pine, redwood forest, and aggressive bitterness. And it's not at all what it was. So I was kind of bummed out there. And then you're right, I do spend a lot of time in California. I did before pre-COVID. And I'll have to say that out there in California, they do advertise them as West Coast New England IPA, West Coast style New England IPA, or at least the breweries I go to.
Interesting.
Yeah, they do. I mean, even so I'm in Southern California, so I'm hitting Stone and Mickler and Noble and the Brewery Turo and those places, and those are the ones I kind of regularly frequent when I'm down there, and it does tend to be that West Coast style is more piney and resinous, but when they're brewing New Englands, they're brewing the big fruity, juicy Citra bombs. You know, the using the hops that you would expect. You know, Citric, Galaxy, Mosaic, things like that, and they're great. But having Heady Topper was a shocker and a kind of a disappointment.
I don't know if you remember my
sometimes
my first New England IPA presentation at Keepers. I brought a can of Heady Topper that I got from, I think it might have been Jack Bartman, Jordan.
Yeah, that's where I got mine from.
Yeah. And I did like it. I don't think it tasted nearly as bitter as what you describe it as, but it did taste a little one-dimensional and sort of like candy.
Yeah,
it has this weird candy taste.
So we sat, when we were there, Heady Topper's delivered like one day a week. You find these little stores that it's delivered to, and you get there at, I think we got there at 6 a.m. and you sit there, and it was, of course, we decided to go in November, so it's fucking cold as balls, and we're freezing our ass out. We didn't really plan on this. We didn't bring blankets and stuff. I think Trent was wearing jogging pants or something ridiculous. I don't know. So we were sitting there in the morning. It's freezing. It's snowing. You wait 8 hours or whatever because the damn store doesn't open until 11 a.m. And then you get whatever you're allotted, wherever you're placed in line. They walk down that like the first 6 people got a case, second 6 people got a half case, next people, and then the rest of the people got a 4-pack until it was out. You know?
Yeah.
So the 3 of us wound up coming. I think I was the line. It was Trent and Al got a case and I got half a case. So we got 2.5 cases of Heady. I don't know how far away we got before we cracked one open. But that just came. It was just delivered from the Alchemist, which was 15 miles away. So it'd been canned the night before, you know, delivered fresh to my hands, cracked, drank, and it was just so bummed out.
I wonder if that's like a thing too. All these breweries are like, they're advertised like a, you know, drink fresh, just canned, like, you know, 2 days ago and this and that. And I mean, this is only from like a homebrewing standpoint, but I've never had a IPA that I've made that I've enjoyed enjoyed more until like maybe a week after it was kegged and sitting and conditioned and everything kind of started to blend together. And honestly, even 2 weeks out, maybe sometimes my beer, you know, my IPAs start to taste like their peak. So
I will say that my favorite thing about that trip, and if anybody ever gets a chance to go, it wasn't Alchemist, it wasn't Head Topper. That might be your thing. That's cool. But Hill Farmstead was, and I am not a religious guy, but that was a spiritual experience.
I do need to make it out there.
I mean, you are going through the back-ass woods, 2 tracks, middle of nowhere. You're like, you know, I would be. I think we both fully thought we were lost if it wasn't for some little hipster Prius that we were following on these 2 tracks. And I'm in my truck and I'm like, well, if they're going, we're going. And then you get there and it's on the top of this mountain, and one of the most beautiful breweries I've ever been to. It was my most expensive bottle of beer until like this year.
What was it?
I was saying, what topped it, and what did you get from Hill Farmstead?
So I bought. So they're very limited on what you can drink there and what you can buy there. Like you're only allowed to consume, I think, 2 20-ounce, 2 pints on site, and if you order a bottle, you have to pay a capping fee and you have to share it with somebody or something. There was some weird rules. So I had ordered a bottle of, I think it was 2014 Civil Disobedience, which is like their barrel-aged Solera sour. It was $30-ish a bottle plus a $20 capping fee to drink it on site.
Holy smokes!
Wow. Yeah.
We split it 3 ways. Al doesn't like sours. He took a sip, and then I took it because I'm not letting that beer go to waste. And Trent and I split it, and I went out on the back deck, and I looked out, and there's this rolling meadow down to a pond, and this is a fucking movie, dude. There was a deer, there was fog, there was birds tweeting and shit, and it was fucking amazing. So, but no, what beat it? God, I can't remember. Well, I mean, Amy recently ordered, she's listening, she'd probably yell at me, but she recently accidentally ordered some $8 crowlers of mango Oberon. So the per ounce on that one might have been
Crowler though. Crowler.
not a crowler.
Yeah.
It was a 16. They're labeling.
They
16
advertise them as crowlers.
They're not
and,
crowlers.
and we all know crowlers as 32-ounce cans, but
Yep.
Bell's is saying can growler. Doesn't matter the size. So yeah.
Hey, I got a couple growlers right here. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel like there was a beer, and it's slipping me right now. I feel like there was a beer though, not too long ago, that I paid actually more for. I'll try to remember it. But the Hill Farmstead beer was worth it. It was amazing. Beautiful brewery. I mean, really, it's state-of-the-art brewery on the top of that
where
mountain.
are they located again? They out in Massachusetts?
Vermont.
Vermont. Oh, they're in Vermont.
Yeah,
okay.
they're in Vermont.
You get people laughing at you saying that $30 a bottle is the most expensive you've ever spent on a beer.
That was at that time. Now I was a beer baby at that. I mean, we're talking 2014, 15. I just started. I mean, I've only been in brewing since 2013, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
About the same, I think, roughly.
I mean, and I've drank more expensive beers, but I haven't bought. I didn't pay. For like that. What's that Sam Adams ridiculous $200 bottle?
Oh, Utopias.
Utopias. I've had Utopias. I didn't pay for it. I've had some of those big mega pastry stouts. Dark Lord and sorry, it sucks. Darkness.
Their pastries, their variants are pretty good typically, but yeah. The normal one is.
But no, at the time that was the most expensive beer. So $50. It was 50 because I included the capping fee.
Okay.
$50 for what ultimately turned into a 20-ounce pour. Yeah.
We've if you've been out to Schramm's, I think 1 ounce pours of what is it, Heart of Darkness, are gosh, what are those? $20 a pour, I think, maybe something
for 1
like
ounce.
that. $25 for 1 ounce. Yeah, that's. I mean, it was good. I don't want to say it was like life changing or anything like that. It's like, okay, I know what the end goal of like a amazing like no water like berry mead should be or something like that. But
my $50 got me a spiritual experience on mountaintop. So and look at Bill, Dark Lord tastes like soy
I was
sauce.
just gonna point that out.
I totally agree. It's just awful.
I just saw today, in fact, that they're doing a so you know how their tap room is apparently closed like indefinitely, until whenever, if that is even a thing. But they have like a backlog of Dark Lords and maybe other beers that they're trying to sell or something. So there apparently something like that is going on. But could you imagine like? So I don't want to judge anyone. I hate being the guy that like judges people for their like tastes and buying and stuff like that. But my recommendation would be if you're looking to spend like any amount of money on like a 2017 regular Dark Lord or something like that, like you can put that money towards like a fund to start making beer.
Yeah,
we will all help you make beer that's just as good.
My first Dark Lord experience, and I know we're getting off topic, but
I know we had the IPA episode.
IPA, now we're on Dark Lord.
I cracked that Dark Lord. We poured a snifter, tasted it, set the bottle aside, and never went back to it. It was just, and woke up the next morning, it was still sitting out by the fire where we were at. So
there are things like sometimes you just have to know. Like I get it, Brandon. Like I'd probably do it too. Like you have to kind of set your bar somewhere and like know like, hey, does it actually get any better than I've experienced before? And if it does, like if it's worth it, then like, I mean, maybe you keep on going a little bit. But if like you spend that $25-$50 and it's like, wow, this is not what it was cracked up to be, then.
Yeah, I think,
and that's started to happen for me in the last couple of years. I've
So I'm gonna try and bring it back. Now I'm gonna crack again. Arvon Brewing, switch lanes. So right here, I just listed the IPA categories, which one is rye IPA, and then of course there's everybody knows New England. So this is by Arvon Brewing. I haven't had this before. It was just canned. Looks like about 6 weeks ago. This is a rye New England IPA.
Interesting. I don't know if I've ever had a New England with rye.
I don't know if I have either.
You know, there's a secret. If you throw like a half a pound of rye into your grist, you can help get that little bit of a snappy bite at the end. If you're going for more of a crisp, clean IPA, adding just a touch of rye into your grain bill can help.
I've been saying it for the past how old's my kid? 8 weeks. So past 7 weekends, I'm gonna brew. But damn it, we're coming up on a holiday weekend. Maybe I'll do that. I want to brew an IPA, so I haven't had one on tap in a while.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for that, like I said, a crisp, clean finish on your IPA or any of your beers, really, you can adding a little bit of rye to your grain bill can help with that finish.
And so when you taste rye, like in an IPA or something, what do you get as far as flavors go? Because the overwhelming response that you'll get online is, oh, I get spiciness, I get pepper, and really more people associate that because of like rye bread and the what's the spice that's in rye bread? I want to say pumpernickel, but that's another type of bread.
I've never made rye bread.
So. I don't know this. I don't know that. I can't come up with a name you get, but I hate rye bread with a passion, and the caraway seeds.
Oh yes,
I love caraway. Yeah.
But rye in beer is one of my favorite ingredients, and I don't get a rye bread flavor off of rye beer at all.
No. I definitely I do. I would agree with what Brian said he found online is I do get a bit of a spiciness. But it's kind of like a snappiness, I guess, is what you're saying. Kind of spiced, not caraway or bready.
So I made I don't know if you guys tried it when I made it. I'm sure you guys did. Do you remember my rye wine that I made last year?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my bottle opener out of my pants. I swear I'm not like doing something funky.
Right,
just seeing your guys' faces does things to me.
You do you.
But I mean, that thing was I want to say 40-ish at least % rye, and I still don't think I got any of those flavors. If anything, I think I got more of like a chocolate milk sort of flavor.
What
it does do is those things are full of beta glucans, and that shit will give you a creamy beer. Like,
I would say, so this, again, no spice. No, this is a rye New England, hopped with Mosaic and Idaho 7. No spiciness, no peppery, super creamy. What you just said, this is a creamy, thick, pillowy, fluffy, damn mouthfeel.
So I've been wanting to try that in my New Englands. Maybe you're convincing me. Maybe I need to try a pound and then see where it gets me.
Yeah, it is. It's really good, but it's got a little bit of the fruitiness. I'm not sure I would have put I'm not a huge fan of Idaho 7, which I know. I think there's somebody in here that's their favorite hop, right?
Idaho 7.
Idaho 7.
Not me.
I've never used it.
God, is it like Brandon then, or somebody? There's somebody in the club that's like Idaho 7 is their fucking jam.
I thought Drew used it a while ago. I don't know if he was a huge fan of it. I can't recall, but
my scar has healed from that. By the way, I think that was like our first episode or something.
Yeah. But no, this is really Arvon's doing good work. I wasn't super impressed with Pink Lady or whatever the hell that was, but the other stuff, the Coffee Blonde, this New England, what was the other one I gave you, Brian? This is good. This is good.
I don't remember. The only thing, and this isn't like a dig at Arvon, it's a dig at a trend. The only thing I wish they would stop doing is the same thing a ton of breweries are doing, and that's adding fruit to their kettle sours and then canning it like right away. I've seen in the last couple of days like 3-4 posts of exploding cans from Arvon. And,
really? I have not seen that.
And I get it. Like, I get why you want to do it, and retain, the extra sugars from the fruit and stuff like that. But man, I just feel like there's got to be a better way to do it. Like,
I would agree. I don't know why. I don't own a brewery, but I don't know if I would ever do that.
and
I don't
then
think I would have fruit before bottling anything either.
people like excuse the breweries from doing this too, and it's like, oh, I know I should have like stored it cold and I should have drank it,
No.
2 days ago when I first bought it. Like, you can't store your beer for 2 days. Like, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going off topic again. IPAs.
So, what's out of all the different varieties? And I'll start with this. Like, I would ask, what's the favorite? I think Brian would probably say New England, but I'll let you answer. But like, my favorite IPA is actually the black IPA.
I'm not going to agree, but I love black IPAs. Not going to agree. They're my favorite. Why? Why is that your favorite?
So I love stouts and I love dark beers, and I know I've talked to people before, and it seems like a lot of home brewers are initially intimidated by black beers, which I don't understand. But when I started brewing, I got into black beers pretty quick with my coffee stout, milk stouts, raspberry stouts, and I had what I thought was a good IPA recipe, and I had a stout recipe that I was working on, my coffee stout recipe that I was really happy with, and I just said, why don't I take the grain bill from the stout and the hop profile from my IPA and put them together and see what happens, and it's like the favorite beer that I make.
I do enjoy a good black IPA. They're one of my favorites.
I like it. It's thick. It's malty. It's malt bitterness that complements the hop bitterness. So you get that. Like, okay, Brian, go back to what you said earlier. That kind of single profile or single note. And I think with a black IPA, I get a lot more notes. I get that.
It's impossible
characteristics,
not to.
Right?
Yeah.
So super happy with it. Someday it'll be on tap at ArcLight if Ed's listening, but we have to call it a Cascadian
Dark Ale
because I guess at some point he swore that he would never put a black IPA on tap. Fucking bastard. So fine. When we were doing the show, because he's given me so much shit for it, him and I go back and forth a lot. But when we were doing the show, I asked him what beer he wanted to have to drink on the show, and his first reply back was Cascadian Dark Ale, and I told him the shitty brewery that was supposed to brew it never fucking came through. So. So that's why we wound up with Creek. But no, that's my favorite style. I love the black IPA. I love the malt characteristics, that bitterness. I joked around. You were over last week, right? I found I had a case. I have a case of like 1.5-year old black IPA, and I joked around like, what does that black IPA turn into when it's old? It's a hoppy stout. It's not wrong. It's like added life. Okay, I lost a case of it in my collection, and I found it, and it's still drinkable because now it's just an aged stout with some hop characteristics.
Why do you think that style faded out of popularity? Like why was that a fad, and why are New England still a thing?
I don't
black IPAs specifically.
Yeah,
I don't think a lot of people like stouts. I think the average beer drinker. I think the average craft beer drinker and the people at brewery hop, I think they're intimidated by stouts.
I think they're intimidated by bitter stouts, like because you'll see pastry IPAs and sweet stouts.
Oh, sure, you can. You're right. You can sell the candy and the dessert and stuff like that. It's got more appeal. But I just think in general, people see stouts and they think big, strong, these heavy ales, which is opposite. I mean, a traditionally brewed, not a session IPA, but a traditionally brewed IPA will have more calories and more alcohol than a black IPA. Darker malts have less fermentable sugars and are naturally less sweet. Now, I mean, of course, but everybody or less sweet, less sugar, less calories. But the trend with stouts nowadays is imperial and big, and that kind of blows that whole philosophy out of the water. But if you brewed, the same kind of grain bill, same pound per pound, regular IPA to black IPA, that black IPA is going to be, I think, more drinkable, less calories.
So like a typical IPA is maybe American IPAs, base malt, some crystal malt, and probably that's it. I mean, you can maybe wheat, maybe oat, I mean, whatever, but like,
but little,
little, yeah.
little.
So with a black IPA, you're adding in like roast flavor too, potentially, or something. Like, do you think that like that might have anything to do with it? Like breweries just not being able to get the balance right? Like,
yeah, I can see
because
that.
it wasn't tried and true when black IPAs were a thing, right? People were putting out maybe one or two and then calling it quits. Like, I don't know anybody that actually perfected the black IPA that I can think of that made it one of their flagship beers.
No, okay, making a flagship beer. No, I think so. My opinion on when Bell's did the Planet series, Uranus was the best beer of the bunch, and they won't rebrew it though. They've rebrewed what, Venus and Mars, maybe Jupiter. Jupiter was, sorry, Bell's, Jupiter's shit.
Uranus.
Uranus. The other thing, speaking of Bell's, Ian Gould, I don't think he's watching, but Ian in our club, who works at Bell's, brews a black IPA that is fantastic.
I remember having that, yeah.
And I've never been in a situation where I could have my black IPA and his black IPA side by side, because I really do think they're very similar and they're very well balanced, and yeah, Ian's is fantastic.
Make me want to brew a black IPA.
But now, really, yeah, man, you gotta do it.
You got to agree, or
I agree, Ron. Yeah,
honestly don't remember. I don't remember what it tasted like, so now I'm sad.
I drank so much of that. I really love the beer. But you're right. I don't know anybody that has a flagship black IPA. I don't even know anybody that has like a regularly appearing black IPA. I know whenever I go out and I see a black IPA, it's like, I gotta have it. Black IPA is black lagers.
Yep.
Are things that I look for. Yeah.
The only place that I can think of that ever really had one like consistency was that Arcadia with Beecraft Black. Was that a black IPA? Or is that just a black beer? The only other one I can think of is, I think it's called Level 92.
Sorry, I muted myself. Yes, it was. But it was seasonal.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. And that was actually a really good beer. That was one of the few beers from Arcadia I would regularly seek out and drink.
Agreed.
It was like a double too. I want to say that thing was strong as shit, like 8-9%. Yeah, Travis. Yeah. Travis is saying Beecraft because that was one of his favorite beers too.
Oh, good to see he's on here.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, good call.
Maybe we'll see that resurrected.
A quick rate beer search.
Yeah, now that Shorts took over their brand, hopefully that recipe resurfaces. Yeah, Travis says it was a double black IPA.
What does Shorts has a black IPA too, though?
So there's another one that I've actually been drinking a fair amount recently. I buy it anytime I find it. It's called Level 92 from Keweenaw.
Oh.
I'm looking it up on Beer Advocate here, and it has it labeled as a black IPA or Cascadian Dark Ale.
Yeah.
yeah, they're all there. I think, we have to call them. I have to call it Cascadian Dark Ale.
But
so we were throwing out some names when we were going to put it on an ArcLight, and one of the names he came up with was Nis of Death.
I like it.
Come on, isn't that awesome? Someday, if you're listening, Ed, you asshole.
For the uninitiated, Jason's last name.
It's Nis. Yes, IPA, black ale, or Cascadian Dark Ale, whatever. So, what's your favorite style of IPA, Jordan? Now that I've gone down mine,
I'm gonna have to go with the tried and true West Coast.
Really,
that's just, I mean, by and large. And now, granted, I'm saying that basing that off of like if anybody asked me my favorite beer, I'm gonna say Two Hearted. Just because it's consistent, it's easy to drink. It was one of the first craft beers I ever got into. So that's just by and large been my favorite beer for a while. I have no problem buying it anytime of the year. So, and that's really where that goes is, if I'm going to say a specific style is my favorite, it's going to be West Coast just because, I enjoy those, I guess, cleaner and crisper IPAs. But that being said, though, like love M43. The B Craft was amazing. Like I'm kind of an equal opportunist when it comes to IPAs.
Yeah, I'm not. I think when I come into it, I like the fruitier, citrusy IPAs versus the piney, resinous IPAs. But I get it. Two Hearted solid. It's not my favorite beer, but whenever I'm out, you're right. It's dependable. It's consistent, and
Yep. And
best beer or best IPA in the country for what, 3 years now?
3 years in a 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that being said, I love that piney and that resinous type stuff. That those IPAs that you get over on the West Coast, like what was it? Deschutes came out with a beer a while ago, and I haven't seen it in a long time, called Pine Drops.
I forgot about that beer. Yeah.
That was delicious. But I haven't seen it. It kind of came out shortly after Fresh Squeezed.
Fresh Squeezed is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I would agree too. Fresh Squeezed is amazing, but I would just because I like that piney and resinous flavor, I put Pine Drops a little higher than that, and I just don't see it anymore. I don't know why. I'd love to get my hands on some more.
You know what beer that I don't think I've ever seen a homebrew clone recipe of is Hemperor.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, obviously they use hemp in one way or another in the beer, but I wonder like how and like what the process is, because that beer smells like straight up marijuana, and it's like bitter but still balanced, and it's just like it's a freaking pleasure to drink.
I don't think I've ever had a hemp beer that I liked.
Really?
I like it.
I haven't tried that one.
Do you associate it with like smoke or anything like that, or is it just like the flavor?
It's the flavor. I'm not huge on the flavor of weed. Like,
yeah. Okay.
I prefer weed and candy and chocolate that I don't have to taste. But that's I think it's the flavor. I'm not a big fan of that. Even when I was younger and I used to smoke, because I can't smoke anymore because I quit smoking. Ever since I quit smoking, I can't smoke anything, so I have to eat. I get my THC through edibles.
That's a great way.
It's just legal for all of us Michigan folk.
I enjoy it, but no, I was never, even when I used to smoke when I was younger, I never really liked the flavor of it. It's never been my thing. So maybe that's it.
I get it.
So Brian, New England's.
Do you freaking like.
Come on.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I've been brewing New England's since before M43 was out, since before New England's were popular in Michigan. I started bringing them to our homebrew club before anybody even knew what a New England IPA was.
Oh, whoops.
And that was mostly just because I read about beer like still to this day, like all the freaking time. Every day I'm still reading about like trends and posts and stuff like that. But I think that New England's I like brewing the most because they're the most challenging. And I do screw up my good fair share of them still, but there's just a few extra things that like that you kind of have to accomplish to make like a good New England that I think when you really actually nail, like it gives you that extra like boost of self-esteem where you're like, yeah, like I absolutely fucking killed this beer. Like, do you care if I gush on like
go for it, man,
for a little bit?
Like
I don't
no, Brian.
I don't want to like take over the conversation, just like and talk because like I've given New England presentations in the past, but so
we want you to stop talking. We'll just
no for the uninitiated. So a New England, I think, differentiates itself from a normal like American IPA in a few different ways. So they are typically hazy, and I'll get into why that is in a minute. Yep. In fact, it isn't. I can't. It kind of It comes up.
It looks like orange juice.
Yeah. This is my very last creamsicle IPA. So more of a milkshake, but I'll get into that too. So typically a little hazy, a little bit more of a pillowy mouthfeel. A lot of that is due to water. and I'll kind of get into that. I swear I'm gonna blow through this. I'm not gonna like fucking hog up the mic or anything like that. I just fucking love talking about this shit. Don't you fucking sigh.
1 hour Brian scientific lecture.
Oh, it's gonna be so good. Oh, it's gonna be great.
Doc Byron over here. That's
And they typically use more like juicy hops, right? Like more citrus flavors, more berry flavors, more tropical flavors.
Had a real hard time juicing my hops. Bad dad joke. Bad dad joke.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Failure.
No,
right,
it's
going,
good,
Brian. Cover up my flounder.
No, so I don't even, everybody that's listening probably, or at least a bunch of people know how to make like a New England IPA, but there's a few differentiating factors as I pick a fruit fly out of my beer. So almost every other, in fact, this is kind of a recent thing. Like, when did you guys start messing with your water when you started brewing beer?
Never.
Well, you have nice well water, but maybe you should look into it.
Why? My beer's good.
But is it good for every style?
Every style I've brewed, I do.
Could it be better?
Really?
He's really.
Do you want to go there, Brian? Do you really want to go there? No. Every beer that I've ever entered, that. Never mind. Yeah, my water's good. I've never adjusted it.
Well.
So New England's typically are very high on chlorides. So New England's will have a softer, like a more pillowy mouthfeel because the chloride in the water is typically a little bit higher. That's like one thing about making a New England that differs from pretty much any other IPA that's like on the market right now, because almost every other IPA wants like a sharper, more bitter forward like tasting beer.
Right.
As far as like the haze goes, the haze is primarily there because a lot of it's due to like the malt bill, and when the hops are added and stuff like that. Traditionally, like before like New England's were even a thing, like who would even consider adding hops to their beer like right as their yeast is like just starting to take off, or like at High Krausen or something like that. Like it was unheard of. It's not in any single like post or anything that I've ever seen, like in the past.
Or even the Whirlpool edition. Like why the fuck
would you do Whirlpool edition? Yeah.
Right.
I was gonna say that is probably the one step, or a hop rest or Whirlpool, whatever you want to call it, is probably the one step that improved my IPAs or hop game in any beer.
Yeah, I still do that for any of my IPAs now, but for the uninitiated, like a Whirlpool edition or like a hop steep, the temperature varies a little bit from person to person and who you ask, but typically you would add hops as you're cooling down your beer under 180 degrees, maybe even closer to 170, and let them sit there for a while. Sometimes 15, 30 minutes. The reason being is that hops have a particular acid in them called alpha acids that isomerize above a particular temperature, which is like around 180 or so. And when these alpha acids isomerize, they become 10 times more bitter than they are right out of the package. So hops are bitter regardless. Like if you've ever eaten a hop, you know that it's nasty and bitter. But when that hop gets boiled, and the longer it's boiled, those alpha acids in the hops isomerize longer and add more bitterness to the beer. New England's aren't bitter, or typically we don't want them that bitter. And so to get all the flavor in the beer, but to not get the bitterness, they're added at a lower temperature to still help absorb hop oils and those like terpenes and everything that's in the hops, but not isomerize those alpha acids, and in high amounts, really high amounts. I mean, I use for my New Englands between 12 ounces and a pound of hops for a 5-gallon batch. And if you look at any other IPA recipe, I mean, 4 ounces is like pretty good. Like maybe even 6 ounces after you include like a dry hop or something like that. So New Englands are kind of expensive because they do tend to really want to pump out those flavors. Science. But
Distracting.
so
No, you're right. Like the milkshakes we just did. I mean, there's like 10 ounces in dry hop. Like I could brew 5 beers and not use 10 ounces of hops.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's super crazy. And there's and speaking of lactose, Jason, this might be interesting for you, and you may not even know it, but what's that particular protein that helps with oils when you eat like a hot pepper, like when you drink milk? It's a
Breaking down that lipid.
casein. Is that it?
Okay.
Casein, something like that.
Yeah. I think casein is.
I don't think David Jones is listening right now. He'd tell us. Yeah, I'm gonna go with you. Sure.
Oh, I'm just really bad at it.
Yes, it is.
It is casein.
Is it?
Yes.
So casein contains like a crap ton of proline or proline, or again another chemical that I'm not good at pronouncing. But when we get into talking about like haze and stuff like that, a haze in a New England IPA, a lot of people get this confused. They think that haze is just like leftover like residual like yeast and stuff in solution that's just going to like drop out, and you're shaking your head because you know it's not right.
Not right.
Thanks, Drew. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So so really the haze in a New England IPA is it's like a colloidal haze that's formed from the bonding of polyphenols, which typically come from hops, and from proteins, which are typically added from like the malts. And going back to lactose, so lactose actually the casein has a crap ton of proline in it.
Actually,
And
casein.
Casein. Okay. And different proteins, like casein, I'm trying to think, has something to do with the amount of like, it's called proline in the casein, and different proteins basically have smaller like molecular sizes, which tend to keep in suspension in the wort, like as the beer's like fermenting and stuff like that. And so the protein that is added by lactose actually can potentially be beneficial to haze production, like in a New England. And that's kind of why malted anything like malted wheat especially is important too. When you malt like barley or wheat or something like that, the proteins in the grain are affected and they become smaller. And when they're smaller, they weigh less. And when they weigh less, it's easier for them to stay in suspension.
Right.
Which gives them the opportunity to bind with polyphenols that are also in solution from the hops and create like a haze like that. Up to a point, I read a study not too long ago that something like it was something like 15 to 20%. I think this was in Scott Janish's book of like a total malt bill addition of like malted wheat began to negatively affect like the haze production in beer, because the thought was that like these proteins would interact with each other and bind and become again heavier and start sinking down to the bottom.
Yeah.
And different yeasts consume proteins too at different levels, or like drag them down, or in other ways use them. So it's like a whole freaking complicated process to produce like nice flavors, a hazy beer, a soft pillowy beer. And I think the haze also is important. A lot of people say, oh, haze should be it should not be something that's focused on it. It should be something that comes naturally as you produce like a New England IPA. It shouldn't be like the main focus. It should be a byproduct. And I think that's true to a point, but I think that we all have this like natural bias when we drink beers like this. like you look at this beer and maybe you compare it to something you had in your childhood, like orange juice or something like that. Like we all eat and drink with our eyes before anything else, right? And when we see something that looks like bright orange and has a little bit of like foam on it or something like that, what are we going to think it tastes like? Are we thinking it tastes like chocolate, or are we going to think it tastes like,
Right.
something like thick and pulpy and stuff like that? And so if I were to set down a beer in front of you that's crystal clear and orange, or like really thick hazy orange, and I told you that they both taste exactly the same, and this might be dependent, on how you grew up and stuff too, but which do you choose? And for me, I choose the one that's thicker and hazier because that's what I associate with flavor, I guess. And so when I see a beer that I want to taste, juicy and stuff like that, I want it to have that look about it too, to kind of help push that agenda, I guess. It's almost like a brewing trick, I guess, but I think it kind of makes sense. But that's my New England spiel. I think that's why I like brewing them so much. I don't think I've brewed the exact same like recipe or anything like that, like more than a couple times. I tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak, and I still don't think I've nailed anything down perfectly. But that's
I mean, no,
that's what's fun for me.
I've just started getting into the New England's, and it's inspired off you and your methodology, and I mean, I've only really done two, the creamsicle IPA that I did last week, was inspired off another beer, but that beer and that brewer, I think, was kind of inspired off of your shit. I don't know if I ever told you that, but that's another story. Yeah, I mean, I wanted that big fruity, creamy orange juice, like you said, with your eyes, and we did that milkshake IPA with orange creamsicle, and it was amazing. And now I've redone it in I wanted berries, and I used Brambling Cross and Mosaic for blueberries and black currants. And
I can't wait to taste that.
That'd be good.
It's in the kegerator right now, crashing, and it's pretty fantastic.
I redid it with Citra and Sabro for sort of a coconut vanilla, so we'll have to do another taste
test. That would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I feel like I have to brew one of these.
And Drew says that too. So brown stout is totally appropriate, like style wise, right? It's totally appropriate, but like I just find it more unappealing.
No, I want mine black.
Yeah, I actually remember, I don't know where David Jones was at once, but he was at some brewery with Joanne, and he's texting me pictures of a stout that he ordered, and I think he's like showing, it wasn't this bad, but he's basically like, you can read through it. He's like holding it up to the menu, and you can see through it and actually tell words, and he's like, what the fuck is this, And he was so offended that they're calling this shit a stout, and you can see through it. And I was like, so I was running out and pulling samples of my stouts and being like, putting a flashlight behind them, and you couldn't even see light through it. And I'm like, that's what a stout's supposed to be like. The same thing with New England. I want it. I'll tell you what, this on camera, it kind of comes through. It's kind of dishwatery brown.
Yeah, kind of like a gray water look.
So yeah, like if this is the color you get off of a rye New England, maybe don't do that. Like, I don't know. The beer's fine, but it looks like shit.
Sure. Yeah.
So to bring this then back, so we have 7 other varieties of IPAs, and I think everybody picks on Brute, but what do you think is like the least represented, least favorite IPA style?
I couldn't tell you the last time I had anything that was called a white IPA.
I don't even know what a white IPA is.
I don't even know. Yeah, it's in the BJCP guidelines, but I don't know what that actually means.
An IPA with a lot of wheat. I don't know. I think I've had one.
Yeah, I can't actually remember ever having a white IPA, and I will say that the few Belgian IPAs I've had.
Short's, I think, Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster. Is that a Belgian IPA? I want to say it is. Which is Hitchhikers is an amazing book, but That beer is pretty good, but yeah, in our household, we generally don't dig the Belgian flavors all that much. It's hard to drink a lot of at a time, kind of.
White, so Drew Stout says, well, here, white stout's a thing, white IPA not so much.
Bill's saying it's a
Basically,
yeast thing. Yeah, okay.
it's a wit yeast. I can get that. I didn't mean to take that off. I can say it would be a pretty rare. If I was brewing with a wit yeast, a wheat beer, I don't want those overly hoppy characteristics. I think I don't think it's a good.
So
good style.
Pan Galactic Gargle Blaster is a Belgian double IPA.
Belgian double. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I've had it, and I don't care for it.
I don't know if I've had many Belgian IPAs that I'm a huge fan of. I mean,
they're good for one at a time for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's interesting. But Drew says white stout's a thing, white IPA not so much. So the white stouts, originally were a joke.
Yeah.
It was a brewery out west fucking around with people.
Is that JP Casper?
Yeah. Wasn't it White Buffalo?
Or White Buffalo and the beer is JP Casper or something like that?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, I think so. But the whole thing there was they were doing an interview or something, and they told some, and I know I'm getting this loosely wrong. They told somebody like they were making fun of somebody with a white stout, and then after the interview, they went back and they kind of went like, well, let's fucking do it, and so they brewed this golden stout, white stout, and now they're rocking, man. Like white stouts are good.
Have you had a Founders Marvel roast? We talked about it like 4
I
episodes
haven't had
ago.
it yet. Yeah,
it just came out, and yeah, it's everything you would want in like a white stout: coffee, chocolate, vanilla, and it's blonde. Yeah.
So my favorite beer in California. Like it used to be. It used to be every time I went to California, the first thing I did, I'd get off the plane, I'd go to this brewery and get this beer, and then I go out there a lot before COVID, and so it just got to be too much where I couldn't make it every single time. But it's called Naughty Sauce by Noble Ale Works, and it's a white Java Mocha stout on nitro.
You've told me about that beer, but I didn't realize it was a white stout. I thought it was like a stout.
No, it's a white stout. It's a white stout, Java Mocha white stout on nitro. They variant it up. They do. They have one variant called Yoga Pants, which is with pumpkin spice flavoring, which is horrible. They do like a cinnamon crunch variation, which is nasty. They do a pineapple one, which is actually pretty good. But the original Naughty Sauce is probably one of the best beers I've ever drank. It's a fucking white stout on nitro, and it's amazing. So
I was really excited because you don't see a whole lot of white stouts on the market, and I was excited when New Holland released the white dragon's milk or whatever.
I haven't had that yet.
I'd be interested to see to have your opinion on it. Personally, not a fan.
No,
not a fan. I think it would be really good if it wasn't barrel aged, but that it kind of shines through a little too much for me. But the only time I've had it was on tap, and it was like right after it released, so maybe they've adjusted it now. But
so Swayze or ArcLight does one called Swayze Crazy that's a Java Mocha stout, a white stout that's really good, and he barrel aged it this past year, and I've got a bottle in the fridge, and I've been afraid to open it because you're kind of fucking with a good thing. But
right, I feel like when you have those roasty malts with all those flavors in there, and then you barrel age it, that whiskey flavor kind of blends with everything, and I feel like with the white stouts, that whiskey flavor just kind of cuts right through everything.
But again, this is an IPA show, so
that's true. We're on stouts again. Holy crap!
Shayna literally just told me over my shoulder, like, you are the worst at staying on topic.
It is. Somebody, hold on.
What are we doing?
Drew just asked me about my glass, if it was the 2018 Michigan Homebrew. There it is.
I was just drinking out of that yesterday.
But what were we saying? Oh yeah, if we do need one, we're going to do more of these style episodes, and when we do the style episode on stouts, and I'm going to sound like Brian, and I'm going to sit here and talk nonstop about fucking stouts because
then I can drink.
That's my shit. I love stouts, but IPAs actually, you know, honestly, out of if you go like style wise, like it's probably one of my least favorite styles.
Your least favorite or your least meddled?
That's a good question.
No, okay, my absolute least favorite style is a barley wine.
Least favorite or least meddled?
I've never meddled in a barley wine.
Is that why it's your least favorite?
I just have never brewed one because they suck.
We've brewed one before. I brewed it with Jordan, I think.
But least meddled? I don't know. I mean, it's not my least meddled. No. I've actually almost 1 year I was like 1 point away from sweeping the IPA category at Michigan Homebrew or Beer Cup. And I
Before
think
you
I've
decided to recruit a bunch of good brewers into beer competition.
Yeah, you know what? I encourage all of you to brew more and enter competitions. Not brew more, but enter more brewing competitions. And then you start taking my shit.
It just encourages everybody to be better, really.
Step up the game.
It's better for all of us.
So it's like I'm in IT, and I always say that, you know, when a company does well, part of their profit should be considered, or, you know, tied back to IT, because they can't do well without IT. They can't function without IT. So we should not be considered a cost center. We should be considered a profit center. And I should now apply that to all of you. Like, I should get a portion of club medals of the people that I've encouraged to enter competitions.
I'll let you take my medals if you chew it off.
Yeah. You got yours hanging behind you there, Jordan, somewhere?
Yeah, I do. They're sitting right off to the side.
Nice.
All three of them. Big winner here. That's.
Well, it's only been we've only all been competing in competitions a couple of years now. So
yeah, last year was I think I've done competitions for 3 years, and last year was.
I have never won a best in show, even if it's like it was third best in show or anything like that. Yeah. So don't you go off saying.
No, I mean, I haven't.
One of your medals is not good. Yeah, that's awesome.
I haven't won a best in show. I did win the K-Dale, I guess. I guess that's a best in show.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. But IPAs, I've won a few. You know, not like a dozen or anything, but.
And speaking of, that wasn't an IPA, but that one that was best in show was a pale ale.
Pale ale? Nice.
Yeah, close. But.
So what do we have? What's next?
Did you see a ghost, Brian?
Did somebody
there's
get you?
Yeah, hold on. You guys go. I'll be right back.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Cool.
So this is a 0.5 episode. We don't have a guest. In the future, coming soon. Next week's going to be another 0.5 episode that we're going to come up with a new name for these 0.5 episodes in the next week.
No, that was quick.
I'm back. Sorry. No, for those that are uninitiated, we run a rabbit rescue out of our house, and the majority of them are upstairs above my office. So sometimes things get rowdy. I was trying to figure out what was going on.
Are you in the basement now?
No, I'm in the mid floor, but
wait, you have an upstairs?
Yeah, we have a Cape Cod. It's like one giant room upstairs.
I never knew this. I've been over to your house. Like, I don't know how many times.
Yeah, just because nobody goes up there because that's where all the rabbits are, and they don't. Yeah, we try not to let.
I'm gonna get a refill.
People into they startle easily, I guess. So yeah.
All right, so Brett, I guess since we're on IPA, and IPA is that's your style, or at least something that you I feel you do very well at. Just for my own learning. What's like the one or two things that you felt really took your IPA from one level up to the next? Like, where did you really start noticing improvement?
Two things. So the very first thing is going to be
hanging out with me.
I was winning medals with my double IPA before I knew you. Actually, I don't think I entered any competitions before I knew you. But so the first thing, probably the most important, and this would be for any beer, but oh god, I want to. Can I go with 3 things?
Sure.
So the first is going to RO water from Portage Water, because our water is awful. It's awful. If you're lucky enough to have Jason water, then good for you.
I'm gonna bring you some, Brian.
Yeah, I would love to brew a beer. I'll brew a beer with your water sometime, and we can do a brew off or something. But...
Jason, I'd be interested. Not to interrupt you, Brian, but I'd be interested to get one of your IPA recipes, and I'll brew it off my well water, and since you brew off your well water,
your well too.
Yeah, yep, I am well.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Brian, number 2. Well,
yeah.
So
for me, RO water and building up a profile, and adjusting from mash pH. The second would be temperature control, which goes for all beers. I only probably brewed maybe like 4 or 5 beers before I ended up investing in some temperature control, but the difference was like pretty substantial, like right away, just in terms of reduction of all flavors and stuff like that. And the third was quite a ways down the line, but that was oxygen free, like closed transfers. So however you can do it, like for IPAs especially, like a closed transfer is like the way to go. Any oxygen, especially for New England's, but IPAs in general, once you start getting like oxygen in your beer, the more it happens, the more flavors you start to lose. The weirder colors like your beer starts to turn, which I mentioned before. Like you want, I don't know, I like a good looking beer. It just the flavors just hang on so much longer. And if you read online, like there are shortcuts, like using sodium metabisulfide is actually proven. I guess I don't want to say proven, but like a lot of people have used that to sort of like scavenge oxygen out of their like bottled beers and stuff. But for me, like kegging and like doing close transfers and limiting oxygen exposure has been like night and day for IPAs. So other beers, not so much, but IPAs for sure.
This is not to just be completely against everything Brian says, but I mean, I'm not. I agree with everything he says. Yes, you should, do a water profile, temperature control if you can, and limit your oxygen exposure. But that said, I do none of that.
I don't have. I've been probably for 3 years been meaning to build a firm chamber, but just haven't.
Same. I started to.
Running out of space.
Yeah, I've got like a frame in my garage where I started to, and I just never did. But I use well water straight. I don't treat it at all. I don't control the only part of my brewing process that I don't control is my fermentation, because I don't have a firm chamber. I ferment on the main level of my house, which is pretty much kept 68 degrees year round. So
that's my basement.
There's that, and I've never messed with closed transfer.
Yep, same here. I will say, however, I do generally fill my kegs with CO2.
Oh, I always CO2 purge. Everybody, I would say that if you're going to do one thing to make up your brewing game, fucking purge your vessels.
Yep.
I'll add on to that a little bit in terms of like purging, not just like throwing the CO2 in and like letting it leak out or whatever, but like filling the entire thing up with CO2, or I'm sorry, Star San, and then pushing the entire thing out with CO2. Like it'll be a lot cheaper in terms of making sure that the entire vessel is purged of any oxygen. But
when I'm going to keg, I think we've talked about this before. That's the process you follow. You fill the vessel, you wash your keg, you fill it with Star San, and then you use the CO2 to push Star San out into a bucket or sink, whatever you're using, so that your keg is filled with CO2. But even if you're racking into secondary, you should still, throw your CO2 line in your secondary, your bucket or your carbo or whatever you're going into secondary, and just let it run for a bit and fill up with CO2 and then come under that layer if you can.
So oxidation in beer definitely isn't like a light switch, right? Like it's not like you expose to oxygen and then your beer is dead.
Yep.
It's just like it's a gradually like it's one of those things where like the more it happens, the worse your beer is probably gonna get. That's just the way it works. So yeah, not doing a closed transfer isn't gonna like ruin your beer. It's just one more thing, one more fail safe to help it be like a little bit better.
Yeah.
And sorry,
I'm not.
I was cleaning. I just opened a Centennial, and for some reason, like it started foaming out of the bottle. So
I'm not knocking. I'm not knocking what you're doing. I'm just saying it's. I don't do those things that you do, and I should. I've always wanted to do fermentation temperature control. I've started the vessel or the container, whatever, chamber. I've just never finished
and
it.
a lot of people have like basements that are cold enough where it may not even necessarily be necessary. I think the last thing that I heard was for every 1 Brix your beer ferments down, it produces about a 0.5 degree Fahrenheit in exothermic energy, like heat or whatever. So, like if your basement wasn't, like 58 degrees, say like you wanted to keep it at 68 degrees Fahrenheit and your beer was at 68 and your basement's at 68 and you're fermenting your beer, like it would probably end up, raising the temperature of the beer up to mid 70s maybe, as it was fermenting. But again, if your basement's colder, like 60, 58 or something like that, a lot of people have very good luck keeping the temperature where it needs to be, and it's not like it ferments like crazy fast.
Also depends a bit on the yeast that you're using and their temperature
Good point.
ranges in which
Yeah, sure.
those yeasts will ferment cleanly.
Or even if you're fermenting on like carpet versus cement.
Yep.
Honestly, like, yeah, or glass even probably versus plastic. Like,
Yeah,
one of those.
Lots of variables.
Yeah.
Variables that goes into that. But so I'm going to ask you a quick flip question. I guess this will go to both of you. And I haven't experimented with IPAs too terribly much, so, and I don't know if you will or if you'll have an answer to this, but just out of my own curiosity, if you've experimented extensively with IPAs, what's one thing that really didn't turn out? If you have something,
so
like chocolate in it or something, I don't know,
one thing that pops up to the top of my head is timing of hops, between flame out hops and then chilling down to whirlpool temperatures and then whirlpooling, or adding them all in whirlpool, or adding them at different times in whirlpool, or adding some hops when I pitch my yeast, or some hops when I have high Krausen, or some hops near the end of Krausen. Like, it's been really hard to determine like any sort of difference there. Probably part of that is because I haven't done it exactly like what I would call scientifically or anything like that. But I still don't know what I would necessarily consider the best process for doing that. Also, yeast health is really, 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 really important. This goes for any beer, but I have started to always do starters for my beer instead of just pitch direct. That changed a little bit when we started getting Imperial around here. The Imperial bags, if you can get them fresh, I think are enough to ferment like a batch of beer well without having to make a starter for them. But I really didn't take into consideration how much yeast health like affected like the end result of my beer. Probably until a couple of weeks ago. But gosh, what did I do that really didn't make my beer turn out well? What did I do that absolutely screwed? Oh, I'll tell you what. This actually just happened recently, and Jason had this beer too. So, maniacal yeast, they sell on their website occasionally hop terpenes that they produce. So they don't like distill them or anything like that. They create like a combination mimicking like Citra or Galaxy or like Mosaic or like all these other terpenes from like want to say they like blend them from like other terpenes that they acquire somehow, or maybe they do distill. Not they have a whole process on their website of how they make these terpenes, but they're very potent. And I know Brandon Edwards has used them, I think, or at least I've talked to him about it at some point in time. He's had them, but they can like ruin a beer. And I don't think my red IPA is ruined, but
It was very noticeable.
Yeah.
It wasn't a ruin.
So 5 gallons of this beer. It was a Centennial and Simcoe IPA. It's the Benny's Red that I'm drinking or was drinking at the beginning of the show. I took 0.2 milliliters of these Citra hop terpenes and added them to 5 gallons of my beer when I kegged it. And it was, I don't want to say overpowering, but it was like, it didn't blend. It was so noticeable on the nose. So there are tools that we can use, I think, to like make our IPAs pop a bit more. I've used these on New England's before when I didn't think that the nose was quite as powerful as it should be, and it didn't stick out at all. But on this particular beer, for some reason, man, I mean, it. You smell it, you drink it. It's just like, yeah. Like even 0.2 milliliters on this beer was noticeable.
Yeah,
that's an insanely low amount.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I don't. The IPAs that I've dumped out are things that I made just stupid hop decisions on, and so I would try to say, pay attention to your alpha acids and your addition times. I've made mistakes, with too much Summit at 60 minutes. Summit's an 18% alpha typically.
Yep.
Do you use brew software, Jason?
I use Beersmith.
Okay.
But sometimes my creative process is different. Like, I've talked about, I'm writing this presentation on recipe thing, and until recently, I would say that I've never brewed a beer that I didn't write. I like to create.
Mm-hmm.
I come up with the ideas. I taste the malts. I taste the hops. I've never brewed until a month ago. I had never brewed a beer recipe that I had not written myself. And even now, the 2 recipes, which were I got a recipe from a friend that I converted down to a homebrew system, and then I brewed this Big Brew IPA. Were the first 2 recipes I've ever brewed that I didn't write or create myself. So even using brew software, sometimes I just get a thing in my head where I'm like, I see the flavor on a hop. A good example is like Yarilo says it kicks off banana, and I want to do a banana beer without Hefe. I wanted to do a banana IPA.
Yep.
But I didn't read, and I got so excited about the banana flavor, I didn't notice that Yarilo is like a 17% alpha. So I start throwing, the shit ton of Yarilo in there, and I get this beer that's just fucking super bitter bananas, which nobody likes a bitter banana. But I think for brewers, what I'm trying to get to is there's beers sometimes, and there's home brewers sometimes that have come in because they're like, and I'm just picking 2 hops from random, but it's like, I like Citra hop beers, and I like Apollo hop beers, so I'm going to make a Citra Apollo beer. That might be fine. In fact, that one probably would be fine. But not all hops go together. I've tasted IPAs.
Maybe not bittered with Apollo or with Citra, and then dry hopped her and Whirlpool
with Apollo. Right. So there's a valuable tool I found out there, which Beersmith or other brewing calculators won't tell you. They'll tell you if I put in this, the alpha's this, the IBUs are going to be that. But the hop wheel, the aroma wheel that's out there, which I cannot remember who fucking created it, Yakima or whoever. But Google it, hop aroma wheel, and try to come up with complementary hops. Not all hops are going to go together. You're not going to find that that this hop has black currants and this hop has black pepper. May not go. Yarilo is named after a fertility well. It tasted like shit. So there's been very few kegs of beer that I've actually pulled a sample and dumped out, and that Yarilo beer was one of them. So my mistake there was I was brewing with a pro brewer actually, and I asked him, like, what do you want to contribute to this brew day? And he said honey malt, and he brought over honey malt, which is honey malt. For those of you that don't know, is a malt that does provide honey flavor characteristics that don't ferment out. And if you use too much honey malt, you will actually get kind of like a sick, cloying or a sweetly cloying beer. It's not the greatest. It's wonderful in the right proportions, but it should be used very sparingly. I had come in strong with Yarilo. He came in strong with honey. We got this really sweet, bitter, very bitter, nasty, rotten banana beer right down the drain. So that's my thing. And I've tasted beers before. I've gone to brewers. There's a brewery here, local, that I'm not going to name, that I've gone to, and it's like every beer, every IPA on tap, nothing melded, nothing was complementary. Everything seemed to be fighting each other. The hops were opposing, and the hop malt characteristics were opposing, or it tasted like fish, and I don't know how they did that. So that's my recommendation is, do your hop research. If you want to, play with a new hop, do a smash if you're not familiar with it, or go out and research your hops on the hop aroma wheel, find some complementary hops, do a little research. That's what I would say. You asked the question, what changed my game is researching my hops. Don't just go willy-nilly.
There you go. I will say that is something that I am, I guess, at fault for, is that I will occasionally I'm terrible at pre-planning. I get busy enough, and I'm like, I'm going to brew this day, Saturday or whatever, and I don't end up building my recipe until like Friday night before I'm heading to the place, and then I get there and I don't have all the hops that I have, so I just end up grabbing shit off the shelf. And you're like, that sounds good. That sounds good. That sounds good.
That's my recommendation then, Jordan. Then step back, lean up against a pallet of beer, pull out your phone, and Google substitutions, because you're standing in a nice cooler. It's comfortable. Take your time, find substitutions. And I do that all the time. I've actually literally had the Bell's employees come in and be like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yep."
I have had that happen too. Like, I'm not stealing anything, I swear. I'm just confused as to what I'm trying to build.
Right. Like, no, you didn't have Nelson, and now I got to try to figure out what substitutes for Nelson, and the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
But
which is fine. I don't really like
I do enjoy Nelson though.
I do, Brian.
Topic. I used to dry hop my ciders with Nelson.
So there's a beer that I brew. Actually, that's a good idea. But there's a beer I brew that I've only ever brewed for me. I've never entered it in a competition. I don't think I've ever really given it to anybody but my closest of friends. And it's a Nelson Rye Amber. And it's like the style just doesn't go together. It's a rye amber beer, heavily hopped with Nelson. It's my favorite beer.
I don't think I've had it. Yeah.
No, you haven't. But it just doesn't fit into any category. It's not a competition beer, but yeah. But Nelson and ciders, that sounds like it could be.
I thought it was pretty. It took a while for. I don't know if you've ever dry hopped a cider, but anytime I've done it, it seems like it takes a while for those flavors to meld properly. And I'm talking like maybe a month or two.
Are you talking about a cider or a graph, like a straight cider?
Like a straight cider.
Okay.
I've never made a graph. I've never mixed a cider with anything besides berries or fruit and hops.
Okay.
But yeah. I mean, I think I did the one that I created that I liked the most with Nelson. I think I used 2 or 3 ounces, and dry hopped it for. I think I left him in there for a week and a half or so before kegging it, and then it was probably about a month and a half or so after cold crashing and staying in the keg that I felt like it just hit that good balance between hop and apple.
I could even say, Brian, like you're doing that piment with
cotton candy
grapes.
Yeah,
that might be I mean, if you pull a little of that off and dry hop it with Nelson, that might complement really
that would
well.
be good too.
I love Nelson. Yeah. But I've never dried. So who did it? I was just thinking of the mead. Bee Nectar did a dry hopped.
Was that the Necronomicon or whatever?
No, Necromonicon, whatever. That's a pepper.
Oh,
That's not dry hop. I think that's pepper.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't remember. They did one once, and I remember. I think it was at like a Bonte Boktober or even the Quirks for Conservation. I was at the zoo and I was drinking it. I was like, "This is amazing." They're like, "Yeah, we're probably never ever doing it again," and I don't think I've ever seen it again. But they did a dry hopped mead. So Brian, do a dry hopped mead.
One day. One day.
I've got 15 pounds of honey down here right now.
Yeah, there you go.
Turn into mead. So
yeah, after we're
again not IPA.
Here, go downstairs to help Shayna put together the rest of her piment. So
Piment.
It's gonna be awesome.
Right on. So is that
what we should do? So that's all I have to say about IPAs. But I had an idea.
Are you sure?
What's
Brian?
your idea?
I had an idea. So some Mondays, maybe every like 7th episode, I don't know, that's a random number. We should get drunk before the 0.5 episode.
Oh, that sounds like
instead
a great
of during,
idea.
and then just start there.
Okay.
My cheeks are real red right now. The light isn't showing it, but
so we need to come up with. So I was trying to say this earlier. Is we're going to actually have 2.5 episodes in a row, and it's not because we don't have guests. It's just because of the way that the guests that we're lining up want to or need to come in. So the next guest that we're trying to line up is 13th, which means that next week will also be a non-guest episode. And that being said, I think we need to ditch this 0.5 bullshit.
Yeah, agreed.
It's confusing. So
okay.
I like this. We said style series on that. I think that's.
I like the style series because
Yeah,
there's those options. But I wanted to say too, with the style series, we're not going to. Just because I said that we're kicking off the style series, it doesn't mean the next 12 episodes are going to, be all about beer styles. It's just something that we're going to trickle.
Should we be like, that was a 0.5, that was a 0.5, that was a 0.5, and next week's going to be like episode like 11 or something like that?
11, yeah. Right. So I think we'll change.
Go back and change the titles of these.
Maybe, I don't know.
I think I can.
At very least, we should be able to collect them into like a group.
That's why this was 0.5 question mark. But we'll get rid of that. That said, those of you that are watching and those of you that will watch, I know there's only a few watching right now because we rambled, but there are people that picked this up through the week. If you have ideas or things that you want us to talk about, let us know. Last week I asked Deb, what breweries or who we should talk to, and she gave us a couple of great names, which we're going to reach out to. And we've still got breweries we're going to talk to. We're still going to have a Michigan Homebrew Festival episode if you guys are watching soon.
Homebrew Club presidents.
Homebrew Club. We're shooting for Homebrew Club presidents on the 13th of July. I forget. Anyway, and then I think we're going to get some homebrewers on here, just talk about their processes and how we homebrew, how they homebrew.
Yeah, that'd be nice to have like just a guest episodes and shit.
But we don't have a lot of feedback or interaction on our Facebook page yet. I know we're still new. So those of you that are watching, or if you're watching, leave us the comments. So I'm gonna say it. Smash that like button. There it is. And give us the feedback on what you want to talk about, or even if it's like, Brandon, you want to just be on the show, be like, I want to come on the show and talk about this shit, and we'll do it.
Absolutely.
If we're gonna do this every fucking Monday, we're gonna need the help of the community. So that's my 2 cents. We don't know what we're talking about next week.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. The week
We
after
figured that
that,
out last night. So
hopefully the week after that will be Homebrew Club Presidents. Murray just busted down my door. Murray,
hooray.
Beer Cat. So yeah, that's it. Are we doing anything after this? Or are you already drunk enough? Are you drunk to go to the bar?
I gotta make that piment. If you guys go, I may join you later. But
per usual, I have to go.
Yes, go be a dad.
All right. Next week then.
next week.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
All right.
It's been fun hanging
Thanks for
out.
Thanks for joining us for the IPAs. Yeah. Have a good one.
Take her easy.